Hi everyone, SpiderMan 1991 here, and it's day 3 of Spider-Man Week, my celebration of the 50th anniversary of Spider-Man and the upcoming release of the Amazing Spider-Man movie. So for day 3, I thought I should review something that I think some people may have been wondering whether or not I was actually going to do it, but I decided, given the theme, I should do it right now. And I am going to review and talk about all three the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. Okay? First of all, these are great. These are probably some of my favorite comic book movies of all time. I mean, when I say some, I don't mean all of them. I'll get to that in a minute, but I mean, one of the first comic book movies that I really enjoyed was SpiderMan II. I really enjoyed this. This was before I got back into collecting comics and reading them. I think it was maybe 1 year before that. I saw this with my dad when we were in Disney World, and it was like our last day at Disney World. My family was in downtown Disney. There was a movie theater. My mom thought we should go see a movie. She and my sister went to one movie. My dad and I went to SpiderMan II, and I loved it. I mean, I didn't even see the first movie, but I saw this, and it was just amazing. Just really amazing. Amazing. It blew my mind. It made me want to go back and find the first one and watch it. Watched the first one, loved it, and I was really looking forward to Spider-Man III. So, the Sam Raimi films were good. Unfortunately, with the third, they kind of really screwed up with. I don't want to say, screwed up is probably the wrong term. I just want to say that the third film was just not really as left us much with an impact as the other first two movies did. I mean, for example, the first movie, the villain is the Green Goblin. And this also is the origin of Spider-Man. Peter Parker gets bit by a radioactive spider. He goes into a wrestling match to mainly win money for a car to impress Mary Jane. However, though he's gypped, so when the runner of the wrestling tournament is getting robbed, Peter lets the robber go by, and the robber later kills Uncle Ben. So that was a great job the way they did the origin in it, and also the way they portrayed the relationship between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin in this, because there are a lot of comic book references to this in the Goblin's actions. First of all, when the Goblin found out Spider-Man's identity, that was something that really reminded me that the Green Goblin was the first villain to ever figure out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. That was something that made Norman Osborn that sort of really set the bar high for me with Norman Osborn. And also then when Norman kidnapped Mary Jane and took her to the bridge, that's also reminiscent of how he kidnapped Gwen Stacy in the comics right before her death. Did the same thing with Mary Jane in this, although I think the bridge location in New York was different. Anyways, it was still a great homage to that, except Peter actually saved her. And in Marvel Knights Spider-Man issue 12, I believe, Green Goblin actually did try the same thing that he did to Gwen with Mary Jane, but this time Peter saved Mary Jane because he went through the night, because it was something he practiced for a while to make sure it doesn't happen again. And also Norman's death in this is another way similar to is exactly the way he died in the comics. He tried to attack Spider-Man with his glider, but unfortunately, Spider Sense, Peter dodges it, lands right into Norman's chest and impales him into a wall. It was a really, really great film. Especially the way they portrayed the relationship between Mary Jane and Peter Parker. Peter Parker is at first like the boy who's too shy to ask out the pretty girl. They do have a nice friendship, but he wants it to be more. But with his new powers and new responsibility, he realizes that, and especially since the Goblin attacked Aunt May, he's rethinking the entire thing. And now he doesn't want to be with Mary Jane because he thinks that it puts her at risk too much, and that's why he doesn't want to do that to her because he loves her too much. Which brings us to our next movie, SpiderMan II. in it, pretty much, Peter Parker has given up on ever pursuing having a normal, happy relationship with Mary Jane. I mean, he does try to sort of salvage their friendship is pretty much tested in this, especially when Mary Jane is engaged to J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson. And also, Doc Ock appears in this movie. Very interesting choice of how they portrayed Doc Ock, because in the movie he's a scientist who's happy, he has a wife. That's actually the first time I ever think they showed Doc Ock in any kind of normal human relationship. Anyways, lab accident goes wrong with his arms, the mechanical arms that he controlled with artificial intelligence. I want to say they achieved self-awareness, but the inhibitor chip that allowed him to keep the arms in check gets burnt out, so the arms start to slowly make Octavius mad, and he nearly destroys all of New York in the pursuit of recreating the device he made to harness solar energy. Except in this case, it would be bigger and ultimately destroy the city. And the fight scenes in this were great, especially on the train when Spider-Man fights him right after Doc Ock kidnaps Mary Jane. I really feel like I'm jumping around this review. Sorry if I do that, but anyways, back to another thing about Spider-Man II, which I found very interesting, was that for the most, I want to say maybe about half of the movie, or a good chunk of it, Peter Parker loses his spider powers. I mean, he starts to lose them, but at the start of the film, you can see that while he's trying his best to maintain his career as Spider-Man, Peter Parker's personal life isn't that great. Not just because he's not with Mary Jane, but also because he gets fired from his other job not photographing, taking pictures for the Daily Bugle, but sort of a pizza delivery job he had. He got fired from that, and then his grades are slipping in all of his classes, and right after he hears that Mary Jane is engaged, I think it's very interesting to know that Peter's powers are what happened to Peter's powers are sort of psychosomatic, is that he just feels like he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, that he just wants to be Peter Parker so that he could have a break from all this and just try to be himself again. And his subconscious does allow him that, as it sort of blocks his spider powers out. Because he does later get them back, so it's not like they're officially blocked out. I would just say that he just put a mental block on them for most of the movie. And so when Peter does this, he does seem to get most of his life back together. However, Dr. Octopus is nearly destroying New York, and then Doc Ock tries to make a deal with Harry Osborn to get one final piece for his device, and Harry, who's pretty much driven with revenge for Spider-Man after knowing that because Harry believes that Spider-Man killed Norman, but in actuality Norman killed himself. But still, Harry blames Spider-Man, so he makes a deal with Otto Octavius to bring him Spider-Man, and he'll give Doc Ock the final piece. And so Octavius kidnaps Mary Jane so that Peter Parker could get Spider-Man to help fight him. And right when Mary Jane gets kidnapped, that's when Peter realizes that, he needs to help her, he needs to save the day, and boom, he gets his powers back, gets his old suit, and swings right back into action, and he fights Doc Ock, and he does ultimately gets captured by Doc Ock and delivered to Harry, but it's that part, and Harry discovers Peter is Spider-Man. Then Peter is able to save the city and stop Doc Ock, while at the same time he inadvertently reveals his identity to Mary Jane, and now she understands why he didn't want to be with her. But in the end, though, Mary Jane leaves John Jameson at the altar, and she goes and sees Peter and tells him that she loves him no matter what, and she wants to take the same risks as him. So, happy ending there. And now we move on to the third movie, SpiderMan III. Gotta say, this movie was just... I don't want to say it was bad. I do not want to say that. It's because I did enjoy some parts of it. However, it was... Looking back, it's kind of like what happened to Green Lantern. It just underperformed we were all expecting another blockbuster hit to come out like right after these two, but it really didn't. I mean, Peter Parker's life is going great, okay? And so Spider-Man, people are starting to like Spider-Man, and, you know, even though the Daily Bugle's still calling him a mess, people go, oh, hey, Spider-Man saved the day, awesome, he's cool. And everything goes great for Peter Parker. He's doing well in his job, his classes, and he's in a stable relationship with Mary Jane. And he is on the verge of proposing to her. Unfortunately, things get in the way. He gets infected by the black costume. Harry Osborn becomes the new Goblin. It's just really gets in the way. And also, he learns that apparently the guy he thought killed his uncle isn't really responsible, and that the real criminal was Flint Marko, who becomes the Sandman. So Spider-Man just goes after. So Spider-Man pretty much is almost in a revenge-driven mode whenever he fights the Sandman, and it gets worse. And when he's with the black costume, he goes into like full-on rage mode and nearly kills the Sandman himself. When I say nearly, I mean Sandman survives. But eventually Peter does sort of go through tons of personality changes, especially after Harry gets Mary Jane to like break up with Peter. And it just really screws him over. Especially the black costume really messes with Peter, especially that whole thing where he like gives himself emo bangs. Like, oh my god, I remember every time he did that in the theater, people were laughing at it. That was just like, I mean, it's supposed to be like this moment where like, oh my god, he's going dark, but when people see that, they're like, oh my god, he's become emo. What the hell, man? I think this movie was trying too hard to be good. That was the problem. Okay? See, with Spider-Man, the problem was that Spider-Man 1, one villain, Green Goblin. Spider-Man 2, one villain, Doc Ock. Spider-Man 3, we have Harry Osborn, Venom, and the Sandman. The problem with that was, given the ending of Spider-Man 2, though, right after Harry discovers Peter's Spider-Man, he starts to develop hallucinations of his father, Norman Osborn, encouraging him to kill Peter, and then he discovers the whole Goblin, one of Norman's hidden hideaways with Goblin equipment, and the Goblin formula, and another glider. So and the way that movie ending was that they were setting up that Harry would become the new Goblin. Spider-Man 3, the problem with it was apparently the studio was pushing Sam Raimi to include Venom for the movie, but Sam Raimi wanted to do Spider-Man, and a lot of people, I would say, who saw Spider-Man 2 really wanted to see Harry Osborn as the new Goblin. So it was like Sam Raimi was trying to just please everyone, himself, the studio, and the fans. It did not work out. Because I asked a lot of people later what they thought about Spider-Man 3, and they would always tell me that was the weakest of the trilogy. And it kind of was. I mean, at that moment, the way Spider-Man 3 ended, it was just like the moment. It pretty much hit the nail in the coffin, and that led Sony to realize, okay, let's reboot this. But nevertheless, the Sam Raimi films are a great trilogy. As a trilogy, each individual film is 5 stars, 5 stars, 3.5. Why do I like it? Well, for one thing, Sam Raimi focuses on the everyman aspect of Spider-Man, okay? The way it's always Peter Parker, can save the day as a superhero, but also be late for class, not make the rent. That's what gives it sort of a relatable element that people can get, like, oh, hey, has superpowers, but he has problems just like me. Yeah, makes you think. And another thing about the Sam Raimi films is that they did also impacted the comic books themselves with the organic webbing. Okay, that was introduced in Spider-Man 1. Peter Parker did not have mechanical web shooters. I think the reasoning was that Sam Raimi felt that it didn't make much sense that a high schooler could actually build a device like that. So instead, Sam Raimi was just like, okay, let's just give him real webs. I mean, that makes it easier. A few months later, in the Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man himself developed organic webbing, and although that was quickly retconned thanks to Brand New Day. So yeah, as far as an actor, Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker and Kristen Dunst as Mary Jane Watson were brilliant. Especially the scenes they were together, amazing. They really knew how to bring the whole Mary Jane Spider-Man relationship on the screen. Oh, another thing about Spider-Man 3, Peter Parker was going to ask Mary Jane to marry him, but unfortunately that did not work out. And I think if this had continued, Sam Raimi would have had to do a movie with the Pete Parker-Watson wedding, but Marvel retconned that, so that probably wouldn't have worked out. Okay, never mind, focusing. Well, all in all, I have to say that the Spider-Man movies by Sam Raimi are definitely something every comic book fan should check out, even Spider-Man 3. Okay, you need to watch the entire trilogy in order to get it, but I think these are really good comic book films. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2 are probably definitely my top 10. I'm telling you that right now. They're definitely my top 10. I think this was definitely the first comic book movie I saw in theaters. I loved it, and it helped put me on the road back to comic books. Okay, well, that's pretty much how I feel about the Sam Raimi films. They were successful. They did bring Spider-Man to the silver screen, and I would also say it introduced people. I would also say it kind of introduced some people to comic books. And as far as how this will impact my viewing of Amazing Spider-Man, I'm going to leave all my Sam Raimi feelings out the door. Right before I go into the movie, I'm going to try to forget. I'm going to try to temporarily block out Sam Raimi films from my mind, because I do not want to go into a new movie and compare it to the old one. That's not fair, okay? I can't go in and compare The Amazing Spider-Man to Spider-Man 1 because they're not the same thing, okay? They're using the same hero, they're using a lot of the same concepts, but just to go in there and sort of, just compare notes on the two, it's just seems a little unfair to the new Spider-Man movie just to judge it, okay? Because it's like when the new Batman movie came out. I mean, you go in there trying to compare it to the Tim Burton film, and you're not going to fully enjoy yourself. You have to try to put... The best advice I can say right for this situation is to try your best not to compare it to what came before it, okay? Try to go in there with a fresh perspective and decide whether or not you like it as a Spider-Man fan. Not as a Sam Raimi Spider-Man fan, but a Spider-Man fan in general. That's how you decide whether or not you like the movie. And I do love these movies, but I have to be fair about this with The Amazing Spider-Man. So, Anyways, back to the original subject. Sam Raimi films, definitely something you should check out. I would say whether or not you should watch them before you see The Amazing Spider-Man, that really depends on you and your schedule. They're not necessary to watch for The Amazing Spider-Man, but they are definitely good movies. They are definitely extremely great movies. I would highly recommend them to anyone who ever asks me if there's a good comic book movie. I'll say, yeah, check out the Spider-Man films. Oh yeah, also when I got 1 and 2, they were in a 2-pack, so good deal there. Okay, well, that's it for day 3 of Spider-Man week. Spider-Man 1991 saying thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and see you later.